Hello everybody, Chocolate Guy here, and welcome to finally, after years of talking about this idea, an individual episode review of an episode from a show I've covered. This should be the first of many. Today we will be returning to the second season of SpongeBob, the best season of the show by far, and the one that helped produce my most popular video. Well, in that video, if you haven't seen it, I picked a couple of oddball choices that I still stand by to be on the list, but that meant a lot of amazing, popular choices didn't make the cut. Also, there were a ton of honorable mentions, more than most of the lists I usually make, because I mentioned a bunch of additional episodes that didn't make the list, or the normal honorable mentions proper. And Shanghaied was one of them. Shanghaied is one of the most popular episodes of the series, and it didn't even make formal honorable mentions for my Season 2 list. To be fair, that's not even close to my hottest take of that video, but it is still an interesting one. But with that said, you may be wondering what my more in-depth thoughts on Shanghaied are, as I didn't really say anything about it in that video other than acknowledging that I like it. Well, that's what we're gonna do today. So here is my review of the SpongeBob Season 2 episode, Shanghaied. We start the episode off with a Patchy segment, and I gotta say, it's really crappy. I know this episode was cut down from its original 22-minute runtime, with the whole competition and multiple endings thing getting cut in the re-release, so the original segments were replaced or cut down. With that said, I'm going to be reviewing this episode as it is the most well-known, not taking into consideration the original version. If you want to know my thoughts on the stuff that was cut, I haven't seen the original Patchy segments anyways, and the two other endings to this episode that didn't air in the US are both fine. SpongeBob's was probably the best anyways. But, back to the original point. Well, I understand why the Patchy segments throughout the episode are weird, because they tried to awkwardly cut down and stitch together already existing segments, but they should have just got new ones or cut them out entirely. As it stands, the segments are just so awkward and not funny and filled with bad lip syncing to already existing footage. It's not the worst Patchy segment out there by a long shot, and it is such a minor part of the episode that it doesn't really bring the episode down by any stretch, but it's still an issue, and the segments are just so cheap for a show that makes this much money, and not in a fun parody way, in a really cringy and lame one. But this is still an episode of SpongeBob, so let's dive into that part. The episode opens up slower than I'd like it to, especially compared to some other episodes in the second season. The jokes early on aren't too funny, but once they get on the boat, everything changes for the better. The back and forth these characters have with the Dutchman is hilarious, and Squidward getting punished for SpongeBob and Patrick's antics is so funny because of how much of a jerk he is before they get on the ship. There are so many great lines and little moments in the scene, especially when they're made crew, but also them trying to jump off the boat to escape, and the fact that Squidward is so annoying that the Dutchman just throws him into the fly of despair, which is so strange but hilarious. I will also add that the Dutchman is great here. We have only seen him twice before, briefly, and this is the first episode we get a more fleshed out characterization of him, and he does wonders for the story. His scenes with SpongeBob and Patrick are hilarious, and he is the perfect amount of kind of intimidating while being really goofy. I will say, I wish they played him up to be more intimidating like in previous episodes, but it's a minor problem, especially since there's still such a stark contrast between him and SpongeBob and Patrick in just how lame they are as they travel across Bikini Bottom trying to scare people, and I gotta say, this is what makes the episode. The different ways they show off how lame and unthreatening SpongeBob and Patrick are is great, and we get amazing examples through a great montage, and the montage might be my favorite part of the episode with how fast-paced it is and how many jokes they tell in succession. On top of this part of the episode being great, this episode also has some fun twists and turns, making the whole thing more interesting and leading to more joke opportunities. The Dutchman threatening to eat them leads to the perfume department scene, which is also incredibly funny and another one of my favorite scenes. It's so random, but in the best way. They really find a way to make it work with how weird some other things in the episode are. The twist of them getting 3 wishes after stealing the Dutchman's sock leads to another fun scene of them wasting the first 2 and fighting over the last one. The first 2 wishes lead to good gags, and while the ending isn't super funny, I still stand by it's better than the other 2 endings in the competition they did, and either way, the joke not being super funny is a really tiny problem in what is a great episode and another strong and super funny one from season 2. The story is fun and has so many great jokes in different ways through a couple of different sections of the episode thanks to the story's fun twists. It's a pretty unique episode even among some really creative season 2 ones, for being longer than 11 minutes and still being really good and having an interesting plot and dynamic involving SpongeBob, Patrick, and the Flying Dutchman, because we don't get to see them very often, as the Flying Dutchman isn't in a crazy ton of episodes, and they get the best comedic mileage out of him here. With all those positive things said, the Patchy stuff is still weak for the reasons I mentioned. The episode takes a little too long to get going, and can be a little repetitive in places with some of its jokes. Even if these are minor problems, it did keep this episode from making my top 5 list of the season and pushed it below some of the other honorable mentions. This episode probably could have made the more traditional honorable mention segment on that video, as most of those episodes were really close in quality, and I kind of picked the ones that made the more formal section based on which I wanted to talk about the most if I couldn't decide between some of them, and Shanghaied just missed out for that reason, even though it's really close and maybe even better than some of the episodes I put on there. I'm not exactly sure how it would compare to all those episodes, and I definitely have to rewatch the season again to figure that out, but it is in the same ballpark as all of them, and a truly great one, and I'm glad after all this time I get to talk about it here, and give it the true in-depth recognition it deserves for being a great SpongeBob Season 2 episode. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to create more reviews in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and subscribe for more content similar to this in the future. Comment what you thought of my review, and what your own thoughts on Shanghaied are. Also, if there's an episode from any of the shows I've talked about on this channel you'd like me to talk about in a review, comment what episode down below as well. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Links to the music I used in this video and other videos on this channel are in the description below. All music and images belong to their respective creators. Lastly, the Ben 10 list will be coming soon, hopefully by the end of this week or early next week, and until next time, this is Chocolate Guy, signing off.